Greetings from Humanities Alert. Here's another iteration in our insightful lecture series over Homer's epic poem, The Odyssey. Today, we'll specifically be going over comic language found in the epic. So let's get right into the books.
On Book 21, first question is, what gifts do Odysseus and Iphigenia exchange, and how does this show the Greek values that we see so often in the Odyssey and in the Iliad? And the gifts that they do exchange is Odysseus, in exchange for a sharp sword and a rugged spear, received the very famous bow that we talk about so famously in this chapter. And this really shows the Greek values of battle and friendship, and that even through battle, these weapons, these swords, we can forge new friendships that would otherwise be inaccessible. Later in the chapter, Telemachus interjects, and he basically says, "Why must I be a failure and a coward my whole life?" And I find this an important passage because I feel like we often overlook that this is not only a story about Odysseus returning to the polis, but this is also a coming-of-age story for Telemachus, who needs to grow up in order to fully restore the polis and eventually become the king himself. Finally, in lines 162, I want to talk about Leotus, and he is the first to string the bow. And I find this very ironic because Leotus is in fact a seer who is unable to foresee his own future and the fate that he is about to experience, which is obviously his demise.
Move on to the second part of Book 21, lines 162 through 255. The first passage is about how Penelope arranges this contest where the suitors must string Odysseus' bow and shoot it through axes. So basically they have to be able to effectively use the bow, and part of this idea is that only Odysseus would be able to do it. So here you have all of the suitors agree on this contest, but one by one they fail. So that is how the suitors perform during the contest. And what does this show about Penelope's character? Well, her character, now we're getting some insight on how she's also very cunning, just like Odysseus. So she arranges this contest that all the suitors will fail, but she knows that Odysseus would be able to succeed. So really she has nothing to lose. The second passage is how the cowherd is praised to the gods. Quote, "Father Zeus, the trusty cowherd shouted, 'Bring my prayer to pass. Let the master come, some god guide him now. You'd see my power, my fighting arms in action.'" So this is because the cowherd says this because Odysseus asks them, quote, "Say he, their king Odysseus, dropped like that from a clear blue sky, and a god brought him back. Would you fight for the suitors or your king?" So he's trying to separate the guilty ones from the innocent, the good versus the bad. So this shows loyalty in Greek culture despite Odysseus being gone for so many years, and no one even really knows if he's alive, that the people are still loyal to him. The third part immediately follows this, and it is where Odysseus reveals himself to these servants. So he shows his men the scar that he has, and revealing this mark displays a major turning point in the Odyssey, of that instead of being in disguise, Odysseus is finally, I guess purposefully, because it was an accident when that the other servant saw another mark on him. So now he is willingly revealing his identity. So it shows that now he's about to take the fight to the suitors. And that wraps it up for the second part of Book 21.
Hi, this is Quinn from Humanities Alert, bringing you the second part of Book 21, lines 255 through 484. we have a little bit to get through in this, so let's get right back into the book. Okay, so the first section of my section is lines 314 through 320, and I've titled it "The Beggar Requests a Turn to the Bow." The beggar being Odysseus, obviously in disguise. After all these chapters, we know this, but I find this pretty interesting. He kind of humbly, not very boastful or anything, I guess, besides humble, does he show when requesting a turn of the bow. He says, let me get the exact wording from him, but he says, for the moment, give me the polished bow now, won't you? So to amuse you all, I can try my hand, my strength. Is the old force still alive inside these gnarled limbs? Or has a life of roaming, years of rough neglect, destroyed it long ago? Now this is pretty interesting, given the fact that, one, he says, life of roaming. I mean, he's talking about a beggar, but at the same time, it kind of directly implies to how long he's been gone, the 10 years he's been gone on his journey, and how, like, he, on his way back, has gotten lost. It kind of references that, like, is he still able to prove himself as the king of Ithaca, and also show that his prized possession, his bow, still is the pillar of who he is, and he's able to control it so easily. And that's why it thinks, I think it's such an important point of him being so humble, knowing that it's been so long and I don't know if I deserve this. Now the question is, why do you think it makes sense or made sense for Odysseus to go last? The reason I think this first of all, for his own sake, because if he goes, it's like halfway through, and let's say he hits the shot, and at that point everyone gives up, and they said, oh, I could have made it if I had gone before him, he kind of took away my chance, but they have no excuse for that now that he's decided to go last after everyone else has tried their turn. Also, not to spark any sort of, I guess, what's it called? It's trying not to spark any dispute to the fact that he's actually done this. And there's nothing he could have done. He is the last person to touch the bow. There's no tricks or anything that's happened. That's just so they can't dispute that. And then in terms of just the story, it makes sense for him to go last because it builds up that suspense. The fact that I know it's Odysseus' right to be able to shoot this bow and hit the shot, but is he going to be able to do it? Then the next section is lines 400 through 450, the suitors' ridicule. Now, the suitors are ridiculing Odysseus, one, and also the swineherd that's helping him carry the bow so he can be able to take the shot, and he carries the bow over to Odysseus, or disguised as a beggar. And the things they say are just quite interesting. You grubby swineherd, are you crazy? The speedy dogs you reared will eat your corpse. Out there with your pigs, out in the cold, alone. If only Apollo and all the gods shine down on us. And then it goes to the next page, and it's singular lines, but it's the terrible things they're saying to the swineherd. It's pretty interesting in terms of, it's pretty ironic in terms of these are the things that will essentially, I guess, define the outlines of how tragic their demises will be later on, like how terrible they were to the swineherd and Odysseus. This kind of influences that, and they will just, some of the people that are saying these things get just ridiculous deaths that are extremely gruesome and painful, and they plea for their mercy now, and they plea for their life later, then they plea for mercy, and they are asking for forgiveness. But these things are just, outright disrespect, and they ask for forgiveness later because they're at the hands of someone more powerful, and they don't realize this now, and they don't have that humility. They kind of let their overconfidence or their hubris take over, which kind of blinds him from the fact that he kind of deserves a fair chance. But no, later on, it kind of definitely affects how they died. The next section, and final section for me, is lines 451 through 479. I've labeled this Odysseus strings the bow. This is such an important point because although he was being humble and saying, "Oh, I might not be able to do it after all this while," he's so easily able to reclaim his spot as the rightful king of Ithaca and the husband to Penelope. And I find this pretty great in terms of it is the turning point in the moment that fully established that Odysseus is back, and then this establishes the fact of the turnaround that allows for the final upward motion of this comic epic. And what indicator of this turning point is shown right after when Odysseus does hit the shot or get it through the axe heads or axe holes. The like directly after it says, "I believe this is it." Like Odysseus himself, as a beggar, not even the man of the house, now knows that he's shown up all these suitors and says, "I believe it is time for a feast to celebrate my feats." And that is just a clear indicator of the turning point of this plot or the book towards that final upward motion, the celebration or feast that is exactly linked with comic language and epics. This is the end of my part. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. So let's get right back into the book with part 22 with, I believe it's Nathan.
In Book 22 of the Odyssey, lines 1 through 252, there are 3 key questions about this passage. The first one is, who does Odysseus kill first, and how does this demonstrate his cleverness? So in lines 12 through 21, it says that Odysseus killed Antinous, who is sort of the leader of the suitors. And that shows his cleverness because by killing the leader, it would cause confusion among the other suitors, giving him an advantage when he fights them. Second question is, what does Telemachus do to Melanthius, and why does Odysseus want Telemachus to do that instead of killing him? Telemachus ties Melanthius up and suspends him in the air. Odysseus wanted Telemachus to do this because Melanthius was Odysseus' goat herd, and he wanted to keep him alive to torture him for betraying him. He went into the storm and gave the suitors weapons. Third question is, who does Athena take the form of to help Odysseus? And why does she let the mortals fight the battle rather than kill the suitors herself? Athena took the form of Mentor, who was an old friend of Odysseus. And Athena wanted to test Odysseus and Telemachus to see if it was worth giving them her help. And this was in lines 213 through 252.
Lecture is over book 22, part 2, so lines 253 to the end, or 529. And the first question is, what does Athena do to help Odysseus while fighting the suitors, and how does this contribute to the comedic theme or language of the epic? So, this question is based on lines 268 through 274. So in these lines, Odysseus, Telemachus, and the herdsmen are fighting the suitors, and Athena is helping Odysseus by controlling where the spears go, where the suitors' spears go, as in if a suitor throws a spear at Odysseus, it will not hit him, it will hit just a wall, and even though it could have if Athena wasn't there. And then how does this contribute to the comedic theme or language of the epic? Well, first, Athena is a female figure, and also it is very obvious that Athena is helping them not die while fighting. So this will end up in a comedic ending. So the next question is in lines 360 through 395. And the question is, who were the 2 servants that got spared during the massacre? And why would Odysseus spare them? So the 2 servants that got spared were Phemius, however you say it, and he was the person who he was Phemius was the man or servant who played the lyre, and he was that person. And the other servant was Medon. He was the servant who took care of Telemachus when he was young. And why would Odysseus spare them? He spared them because Telemachus convinced him to spare them because they did nothing wrong while he wasn't there. So the next question is, what are the ingredients that Odysseus used to clean his home, and how does this show his wit and cleverness? This will be in lines 453 through 529. So before these lines, Euryclea, or yes, however you say it, she's the old nurse and maid, and she informs Odysseus that the gods, some god has put Penelope asleep, so she has not been through any of this, and so thinking about that, Odysseus does not want to wake up her wife with like all this blood all over the floor and just massacre everywhere. And so Odysseus tells the old nurse to start cleaning everything and like taking away the bodies and make it as if nothing happened. And he used, oh my gosh. And he used fire and one more ingredient. Sulfur. He used sulfur and fire to cleanse and fumigate the house. And this shows his wit and cleverness because he wants to wake up his wife to her regular home and not to the aftermath of a massacre.